Hello everyone, p.o.i here, and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. Now today I'm filling an actually old request for a villager trading hall. It's been a few weeks, but I'm finally getting around to it. And I told myself when I got started in this project that I wasn't going to get too intricate with the whole ordeal. Technically, all you need is a holding cell for the villager with a bed and a workstation and a way to talk to that villager so you can make the trades with him. I did add in a few features that kind of make the whole experience of working with villagers a lot more pleasant. A little bit of tricky work with tracks and stuff, but nothing too complicated. I'll be able to walk you through it easy enough. Now, as far as the redstone involved, we do have ourselves a clever little rail delivery system. I mean, this is almost essential for at least the filling of your villager trading hall. Something like this can make things a lot easier. And plus, if you need to change villagers out, say you find one villager that's better than another, here's a good example here. This guy here, he's got Silk Touch. I do believe, yeah, Silk Touch for 18 emeralds. And then the guy in the next stall here, well, he's got Silk Touch. Yeah, Silk Touch for literally half the price. So this guy, well, he's got to go. He's got to go. So, I have some contingencies in plan for just such an occasion. One, we get rid of this guy. Yeah, sorry. Now, full disclaimer, yeah, that happens sometimes. It won't happen every time, but your workstations will break because you're kind of starting a fire right next to them. If you have the fire tick spread turned off, I don't think that'll happen. But I mean, they're not that difficult to make. If you're building villager trading halls, I'm sure you can get some more lecterns somewhere, or you could always pick it up before you set the villager on fire, but then the villager might not get set on fire if he walks over here or something. But now we need a new villager. I have some indicator lights saying when these stalls are full or empty. This stall's empty, so I'm going to turn that indicator light off, and I'm going to bring in a villager. Now, you won't be able to do it this way in survival mode. You'll want to have them shipped in from far, far, far away. But, I'm in creative. I can spawn them out of a dispenser. So let me send this guy in. As you can see, he gets dropped into the appropriate stall. He takes a little bit of damage. They're supposed to land on the bed so that doesn't happen, but they're fine. They survive. Anyway, he's already synced up to this lectern, but he doesn't have any good trades. So rather than breaking the lectern and placing it back down and breaking it and placing it back down, I just install some buttons here, and it'll move the lectern for me and reset the guy's trade. See, now power 4, that might be a decent one to have. So what I would want to do is make a trade with him, which I have emeralds, but I don't have any books. But I'd want to make a trade with him to lock him in so I could sell him some paper or buy him one of those books. And actually, let me do that real quick. There, I got a little bit of paper. I make one trade with him, and now he's locked in to this profession. So he won't change his trades if I hit the button again. In fact, I probably don't want to do that because it would probably just make him angry. But that's basically all you really need to have set up. And then let me go ahead and turn this back on. And basically all that does is it changes the position of the track. So with the redstone lamp turned off, and then you'll either have a torch on top of this lamp or just a dash of redstone dust. You can see the track sends the cart around this way, and right here the villager will be ejected and pushed out by this piston down into the stall. So once it's full, we go ahead and we turn this redstone lamp back on. We'll see it turns off this redstone torch, changes the direction of the track, so now when a cart comes through, it automatically pushes through to the next stall. And we can continuously build this as far as we want. And of course I have a little layout where I'm going to build this tutorial model, and what I'm going to do is feed this same track right into that new tutorial model we're going to build in this video. Now, I got the materials required for this build laid out in this chest, but these aren't exact numbers. See, all of this is going to depend on how big you want this whole thing to be, and also what materials you're using are actually dependent upon which cardinal direction the trading hall is facing. Believe it or not, in some cases you'd be using redstone torches, some cases you'd be using redstone dust. It all depends on how the track behaves once it's laid out. But types of tracks you will need, you're going to need lots of regular rails and powered rails, of course. So you're going to need lots of redstone torches and redstone dust. You might not need as much, like you might not need any redstone torches depending on how it's laid out, but have some with you just in case. You're probably always going to need redstone dust. Um, Buttons. You can use whatever kind of button you want, but for the button that resets the villager's trade, in other words, the button that moves the workstation, I recommend stone. You could use wood if you like the way it looks, but due to the shorter pulse of the stone buttons, it's a quicker process. I mean, you're only shaving milliseconds off the process, but sometimes you have to reset that trade dozens upon dozens of times to find something worth keeping. So, in any way that you can make it faster, it's recommendable. You're going to need some levers on hand. I mean, you could replace these with redstone torches in a lot of cases if you want, but, levers are going to make the process easier. And well, I mean, kind of cheaper anyway. Some building materials in this model, I'm going to use a whole bunch of smooth stone, whole bunch of polished andesite, and the only reason I'm using those two is just to kind of build the cells in different textures. But yeah, I mean, you can build this in any way you like. You're just going to need a whole bunch of building blocks. The glass probably isn't necessary. It isn't necessary at all. I just put it in because I like the way it looks. Here again, they could just be any build materials. Now, this line down here, this is all what you're going to need per stall. So for every one of these like market stalls that you put in, you're going to need this many materials. You will need at least one sticky piston, one dispenser, one activator rail, one detector rail, one regular piston, one redstone lamp, two trapdoors. They don't have to be iron. A flint and steel, a bed, and a workstation. Now, I'm going to be using lecterns as my workstation in the tutorial because, that's the most common one. Books are very, very useful. So that's usually what people go for first. But if you take a look in my inventory, you can see a whole bunch of other workstations that you could possibly put into this trading hall to create other villager professions. Some of them cannot be moved by the pistons, like the grindstone, and that was news to me as I was building this trading hall. Yeah, so like the sticky piston wouldn't be necessary if you're making the toolsmiths, I think you get from the grindstones, or maybe it's weaponsmiths. Yeah, weapons. But I mean, you can sort all that out as you go. But yeah, all of these have a villager profession attached to them, and every villager profession has its own sets of trades. Well, varying sets of trades. So as you can see, the build area that I have mapped out in this video is a little bit of an odd one, and that's because we're actually building 4 of these stalls in this video, but each stall takes up a space of about 6 by 6. Now, as you can see, these areas kind of overlap one another, and that's because we can overlap these stalls. Okay, so to get started here, I'm just going to lay in the floor for the very first market stall. Now, like I said, this build is, each stall fits in a 6 by 6 area, so we're going to start by one side, start on the far end, and we're actually going to build a 4 by 5 platform. So we're going to start one block away from the back row of blocks, and actually that back row of blocks is only for levers powering your rails. So there's a lot of room for like play in there. If you have other builds close by, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But let's go ahead and lay in this 4 by 5 platform. And now that I got that in place here, we can start putting up our walls around the outside. I want to start in the back corner, as this is where you're going to want your track to feed in at. So let's go ahead and pillar that up. You want that to come 4 blocks up from your floor here, and that should be where the input is. And all we're going to do is sort of wall this thing in, but On the left-hand side or the right-hand side, depending on which end you're feeding it in from, we're going to put in our dispenser. So let's place in one block, our dispenser, and then another block. And then we want to just go ahead and complete this wall. So let's pillar up 4 blocks there and fill this whole thing in. Put a wall across the back. And then just a solid wall on this opposing side here. And now that we got this kind of mapped out here, we can put in our sticky piston. What we want to do is put that one block away from our dispenser in the same row of blocks. So let's break away that block, put our sticky piston facing up right there. And this is where we're going to be placing our workstations. Now, like I said, not all workstations can be moved. I think it's just the grindstone that can't. But in that case, if that's the one you're working with, you can actually skip that step. Um, but now this is where I put in the glass right up front here. Again, this doesn't have to be glass. This is just sort of a decorative decision that I made. This part is absolutely necessary, is right on the bottom of these blocks here. And you want these to be 2 blocks off the floor. You want trapdoors, and like I said, they don't have to be iron trapdoors, but trapdoors nonetheless. And the reason why is because villagers cannot walk underneath these trapdoors, or at least not an adult villager. They're 2 blocks tall, and this is a little bit less than 2 blocks. But as you can see, I walk under there just fine. I don't even have to crouch. It's not a problem for me. So anything that gets dropped on this far side, I can easily walk in and pick up without releasing the villager. Next, we want to come up on top here so we can start putting in our rails. And you want to lay these all in a certain way. And it kind of serves 2 purposes. Well, it's you want to lay them in so that way they can be properly ejected into their stall and they don't end up on one of these ledges up here. And B, you want the cart to be retrievable, of course. You don't want them piling up somewhere. So the way I have this set up is whenever the cart drops off the villager, it actually goes back to a little station where it sits and waits on another villager. So that's probably the ideal situation. You can just keep using that same cart, save yourself some material costs. But let's go ahead and get started in laying these in. So right on the corner, we're going to want a regular rail so we can curve this around. And now on this first side, I like to add in some powered rails. And what we'll do is we'll just power them via lever. So you can just place these on either one of these 2 blocks would be fine. I'll place it right here and just turn that on. See that'll power those rails. And of course we need a regular rail right here. And we will go with another regular rail here. I like to put, not that, one powered rail here, and I'll show you how we'll get that powered. Did I put that in the right spot? Yeah, or no, here, let's do it that way. I don't think it really matters. It's just sort of an OCD thing. That's how I have the rest of them set up. But let me go ahead and we're going to loop this track around. Now right here in this spot, we're going to want a detector rail and then an activator rail and then a regular rail here so we can make the corner. Let's add in one more powered rail for propulsion, one more regular rail. We're going to power this rail right here with a lever on the back. Let's go ahead and turn that on. And now we just need to get, our piston in place. See, these activator rails, yeah, they'll eject a mob from the cart, but chances are he would land up here, actually on these blocks. So what we want to do is actually push him down into our little holding cell here. So what we're going to do is that's where this detector rail comes in place. We're going to build up off of that. But if we're putting another stall right next to this one, and we wanted to variate the textures like I did with this model, well, then I would want this block to be the texture that I'm using over here, because, I mean, the walls are too thick. This would be the inside of the next cell, if you will. But right here, we need to take a redstone signal. So that's where we're going to put in that block. And this is actually going to be a complete wall, except for the one spot right here, where the next dispenser is going to come in place. So let's go ahead and just fill in the rest of this wall. And of course, since this is the wall for the very next stall, we can go ahead and just kind of fill in that same floor plan we had over here. So this would be the first row of blocks. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just going to lay in that floor for now. You can see where this stall still has some room for redstone and needs to come over this way yet. But that's where we're going to put that in now. So I want to switch back to just my smooth stone for, I don't know, I like to build my circuits on smooth stone. But we need to step up off this block right here. So there's going to be redstone dust here. So we want another block right there. And then another block right here. If you wanted to, you could put a block right here so you could place your regular piston. We don't want to place that down right there, and then we just need to get some redstone dust here. So we're going to run that from this activator rail, or this detector rail, right up under the block on the back of this piston. And that is actually the first, well, the redstone mainly laid out for that first market stall. We'll need to put in our track switcher and things like that. But one thing that is important that just doesn't seem important is we need a row of blocks right here. One block above the rails here, so you could basically place them right on top of the rails if you wanted. But they need to come to this point. And now what this does is this helps to ensure that the villager that gets shipped in doesn't land on these blocks here. He's basically going to be stuck in this corner and then pushed down into the cell no matter what happens. So we need to put in our track switcher. And this rail here is going to be just a regular rail. And then we're going to have our glass blocks here. So let's go ahead and just place those in now. So we can have another powered rail right here, and then it'll be another regular rail. So this is starting to feed into that next cell already, so you can see how it sort of overlapped here. All of this assembly is all part of that first one. And then this track and everything, it's all starting to develop the second one. But we need to put in our track switcher. That's why I put that in place. And you kind of need to set these up and power them once before you start using them. So that way you can be sure that the rail's facing in the right direction at the right time. I want to go ahead and grab my redstone lamp. And what I'm going to do is place that right here on the top right hand side of the cell. So it's right in line with this T-junction. And then I'm going to put my lever right on the bottom of this. And in this case, I did have to use torches. Like I said, this is all going to depend on which cardinal direction that your trading hall is facing. But you want to be able to power these. Well, here, let me show you with the redstone. You want to be able to power these T-junctions. So let me just place some redstone dust there. And if I turned on this lamp, see, it didn't change direction. But now if I turn it off, well, now it changed. It did. But I actually want this to be so when the lamp is on, that means there's a villager in there, meaning it should then send to the next stall. So in order to reverse polarity, I'm going to replace this redstone dust here with a redstone torch. And as you can see, the track changed direction as soon as I placed it in there. But now whenever I turn on the lamp, it turns off the torch, and then the track continues on. So now whenever a track comes through this way, it's just going to skip over this T-junction and move right along to the next stall. Now we need to power this rail here, and how I did that is I just took some of my building blocks, and we're going to build just... that's not what I meant to do. We're going to build just a little roof over this. So let's go like this. We'll go right to there. And just to make it look a little better, you can cover up that torch by putting another layer. But right next to that powered rail, you want to put a torch or put a lever down on that block and turn on the lever. It'll power the rail. There you go. So this first stall is pretty much already set up. If we had this turned off, the next villager that gets sent in is going to drop into this next stall. So let's go ahead and, since we already got this one started, let's complete this stall as well. So we want to finish off the walls. Let's finish off the glass in the front here with our trapdoors on the bottom. Again, doesn't need to be glass. Let's finish laying in our track system. So we're going to need to turn here. We need another regular rail, detector rail, activator rail, regular rail to make the turn, powered rail for some more propulsion. Now 2 regular rails. Let's go ahead and put a lever here beside this powered rail so we can add some power to that. We're going to put in our redstone lamp right up in front here so we can put in our track switcher eventually. Now we're building in the polished andesite, so let's go ahead and cover up the front here with our extra bits. And we'll put our redstone torch on top of that lamp as well as the lever on the bottom of it. Just a little bit of predictive building here, but that torch won't do anything right now, of course, because there's no other direction for that track to go. So if this is where you stopped, you wouldn't need that torch there at all. The lamp would do really nothing for you. It's more of a decorative thing. But we do need to get in our piston ejection system. Now here again, we're starting to build into the next stall, so I'm going to use the next block texture. And we need to step up off of that, so let's go ahead and step off that one time. Step up again to the side here. Oops, I didn't mean for that one to get broken. Oops. That's what I wanted. And let's go ahead and put our piston in, and then we just need to run some redstone dust. And that one's all set up. Oh, well, very important. Let's not forget this. Just the wall across the back to ensure our villagers don't go that way. And that'll work now. So if this lamp right here were turned on because I had a villager in place here, then the cart that came through would skip right through to the next track. Ooh, let's not forget to power this rail. And once it came through, it would then the villager would then get ejected into this stall. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and build 2 more of these in the very same fashion off camera, and then we're going to start bringing in our villagers one at a time. So I went ahead and completed these last 2 stalls, and as you can see, I was completely off with my build area lineup. I don't even know how I came up with that. But this is really all you need. I showed you the first 2, and then I worked in the next 3. Well, there's a few things we need to do before we start sending in villagers. We need to make sure we get in all our workstation pistons. So let's go ahead and place these in each stall if we have our dispensers already in place. It's nice and easy to line them up. Just break that 1 block away, place in the piston. Here again, if the grindstone is the workstation you're using, you really don't need to do that part. We want buttons for, well, not only the dispensers, but the workstations. So let's go ahead and grab our buttons. We're going to place 1 here, so that button's going to power the dispenser. 1 here, that button will power the piston, and do this on each one of the stalls. Next thing we want to make sure we do is turn on and off each one of these redstone lamps, just to ensure that the tracks are going in the right direction. Right now, they are. So if we turn it on, it should change direction. That's good. We already did the first one time, so it shouldn't be that. They should all be set up properly. But let's go ahead and turn it on. Or yeah, let's make sure. Turn it on. Yeah, change direction. Turn it off. Yeah, it should be going this direction. That's good. And this last one doesn't matter since there's no extra track coming off of this direction. Lastly, as far as the build goes, you want to make sure you light up this row of blocks. This will need to be solid blocks. You can't really use slabs or glass. So you definitely want to light up the area, either that or you spawn proof it by putting slabs down on top or carpet maybe. But then we need to make sure that all of these rails are powered, which I almost forgot to do. So let's go ahead and put that in, turn that on, put that in, turn that on. Get power to all of these. We are good. And then finally, we can start sending in villagers. So let's go ahead and turn this off so that way the very first villager that we bring in is going to drop into this stall. We're going to need our bed and our workstation. Now, a very important side note, you do not want any excess beds or workstations anywhere in the area of this thing. You do not want your villagers to sync up to the wrong point of interest. Uh, so, yeah, make sure you're clear of all those things. And we're going to lay in everything one stall at a time. That's going to be the easiest way to ensure they sync up to the appropriate bed as well as the appropriate workstations. All of these villagers have their beds and workstations, so they should not interfere at all. But let's go ahead and just place... Ooh, I almost missed an important step. Now, before we do start laying in our beds and workstations or p.o.i.s, whatever you want to call them, let's go ahead and place one flint and steel inside of each one of these dispensers. that is our execute function. Okay, now back on track. We're at our first stall here. We're going to lay in our bed, going across the back like so, and we're going to put in our workstation right on top of our sticky piston. Now let's go ahead and bring in our villager. And like I said, you're going to want these things coming probably from real far away. You want to keep your breeder far away from your trading hall or any other villager related farms or any workstations or personal beds in the area. You don't want them to sync up to the wrong thing when you bring them in. So the only bed and workstation in the area that is not occupied by a villager already should be the ones in the stall you're sending the villager to. So let's go ahead and spawn in the villager. See, he automatically links up to that lectern I have in that first workstation. Let's go ahead and send him in. Since these first few stalls are occupied, he'll skip right past all of them and right into the fresh new stall. He gets dropped down in there right onto his bed. Let's check out his trades. He has got efficiency 5 on the first. Like if you don't get that villager, there's something wrong with you. So let me go ahead and lock him in. And I'll do that just by making a trade with him. Let's go ahead and sell him some paper. So now he is locked in with that efficiency 5 book. That is awesome to get on the first try. That is fantastic. So let's go ahead and bring in our next villager for our next stall. So let's place our bed in place right there. And the workstation on top of the sticky piston. Let's make sure this lamp is turned on to indicate that this stall is now occupied. Bring in a new villager. Send him off. He skips all the occupied stalls. And right into his predetermined stall. Let's check out his trades. Quick charge. It's a good price, but let's try something else. Let's go ahead and hit the button. Give him a second. There, he found a new profession. No, we don't want a bookshelf trade. And this is where it can get a little bit tedious. You got to keep resetting these until you find a trade worth keeping. That's 51. That better be a good book. Feather Falling 4. I mean, that's pretty decent. 51 emeralds is a little bit rough. Let's see what else we can get. You know what? You know what? I'm taking protection 4. I'm going to take this one. I mean, it's expensive, but it is a useful enchantment, I guess. I'm just tired of fighting with this villager. Let's go ahead and lock him in with protection 4. Let's fill up 2 more stalls in the same manner. Just remember, do this one at a time. Lay in the bed. Oh, let's place in the bed. Come on, placed in the bed. Okay, place in the workstation. Let's bring it. Whoa, let's make sure this lamp is on to indicate this stall is occupied. Let's bring in the next villager. Okay, now, as you can see, this one has reached his stall and does not have a profession. You notice he's got a fashionable green coat there, and that means he is basically useless for these intensive purposes. And this is where our dispensers come into play. I'm sorry, guy. You know, if you could have just been a librarian, you could have stuck around, you know, but you weren't a librarian. Let's go ahead and put out the fire. Let's bring in another villager. And after many, many attempts at resetting these workstations, I did get myself a couple of good villagers here. This guy's got mending. 32 isn't a good price, but this guy's got, what did he have? I think it was, oh, Fortune 3. That's a good one. So I mean, like, that's how you stock your stalls. And of course, if you're looking for other professions, you'd use their corresponding workstations rather than the lecterns. The execute function with the flint and steel, obviously, that's only going to work if they're standing on the block next to the workstation. But being that that is the only solid block that they can stand on, you'll find that they are standing on that block most of the time if they're not in their bed. Well, I guess those are really the only places they can be. They might end up getting stuck on top of their workstation, but it's nothing to get in here and just nudge the guy around if you need to. You know what I mean? Uh, so, yeah, the whole setup is just basically meant to make the whole process a lot easier to deal with. Like I said in my iron farm tutorial, I hate working with villagers, so anything that can make that process more convenient is, well, yeah, it's okay by me. And of course, things to remember, you can't just leave these stalls out in the open where mobs can just walk up and attack your villagers. You want these to be enclosed in buildings that mobs can't really get inside of. Another thing you might want to consider is lighting up the stalls individually. Aside from the redstone lamps, I didn't put any in there. But if you see in like these stalls that I had already built, I added some lanterns just for lighting. Using the blocks that were already in place for most of them, so you can just come in here. This one didn't have a block, so the first one doesn't. So we had to place one in. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I think I did a glass block on top of it to ensure that wasn't spawnable. Yeah, let's do that. Just so I can hang in a lantern. Of course, you can light this up however you want. You don't need to go through this process, but let's hang in that lantern. The rest of these stalls will already have blocks in place to hang the lantern from if that's the route you want to take. Uh, I mean, it is convenient. Place one lantern, it lights up the whole stall pretty well. Um, as I said before, make sure there's no unoccupied workstations and or beds in the area. They will sync up to the wrong one. They will do it, and then like the only way to fix it is, well, I guess you could probably break the other one and correct it somehow, but sometimes it's easier just to kill them off and bring in a new one. Um, but yep, that basically concludes the tutorial. So, of course, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit that like button. And if you're interested in seeing more from me, consider hitting the subscribe button as well. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching and wish you all a wonderful day.